from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media. Welcome to the Friday night edition of the program. We are live and national. Happy to be here. Truly a blessing to be on this microphone with you, we the people. And, of course, the phone number 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdes. Big story today. Hamas has capitulated and says, yes, we accept the terms of President Trump's peace deal. Kudos to El Trompito. Kudos to all the lives being saved, to the Israelis, and in fact, to Hamas. I'm glad that they agreed to do this. My hope, again, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, is that they're not lying like they have been in the past, where they say yes, but then they do no, And I'm hopeful that we'll actually be embarking on a plan for peace. President Trump speaking from the Oval Office, giving kudos to those countries that helped make this possible. Listen to this.
I want to thank the countries that helped me put this together: Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and so many others. So many people fought so hard. This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents, and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents, because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive. So I just want to let you know that this is a very special day, maybe unprecedented in many ways. It is unprecedented, but thank you all, and thank you all to those great countries that helped. We were given a tremendous amount of help. Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East. And we're very close to achieving that. Thank you all, and everybody will be treated fairly.
So that's the latest there from El Trompito. And I got a little more from him. But I also have an update on P. Diddy. P. Diddy was sentenced to jail today. And like I suspected, it was going to be less than 5 years. I think he got 50 months, and there's probably going to be time served included in that. Listen to this report from Chloe Melas, NBC News.
A judge has just sentenced Combs to 4 years and 2 months in federal prison, and it's likely that he's going to get time served, which would mean that that's 50 months minus 13. So he will serve perhaps like a little over 3 years in prison, and again, he gets a little bit of time off for good behavior. Combs seemed unemotional when the judge decided his sentence. It was a really emotional day. Combs was crying as his children were up there speaking before the judge. 6 of his children spoke, telling the judge what their father means to them and how they really just want their father home. And his twin daughters talking about the death of Kim Porter, their mother, and saying that they've already lost a mother and now they've lost this father. The judge also directly addressing Sean Combs. He said, I know you feel like you're in a dark place, that your children depended on you, but he said to him directly, you are going to get through this. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and he said that you have an opportunity to right your wrongs in a true path to redemption.
So that's the latest on P. Diddy. 3 to 5 years in jail. We'll see how it goes. As I learn more, you'll learn more. I didn't think he was going to get the 20 years. I didn't think he was going to get the 10 years for each case. I felt like he was going to get 3 to 5 years. And the very real likelihood of revisiting this in a little bit, maybe with an appeal or something to that effect, and getting even less time. But that is how it went down for Sean P. Diddy Combs. So that chapter is closed. Now, I want to continue with the other stuff. The government's still shut down. How's everybody feeling? I know. Everybody's freaking out. Oh, today I couldn't. It was so difficult for me. Everything I did was impacted by this government shutdown. Psych. I'm kidding. Listen, I make light of this because Government shutdowns really just don't affect the majority of people. In fact, it just highlights how ineffective our government really is and how we can do without them. And I think those layoffs are coming. If the Democrats keep playing games, right, today, they're out there doubling down. You got Hakeem Jeffries out there saying this is the Republicans' fault when it was Democrats that voted yesterday 3 times. And now today, again, 2 more failed attempts. This is clearly the Democrats doing whatever they can to keep this government closed. They think that if they can make this last to when the wick runs out, that they can try and hang this on Republicans. Now, listen, some people might be buying it. I'm not stupid. I wasn't born yesterday. I might have been born at night, but I wasn't born last night. And I know that it's the Democrats that literally are voting for this. They're on the record. Go to congress.gov. All the proof is there. But this is where they're at. And El Trompito, he weighed in on this today. Cut 1. Check this out.
There was an OMB memo going around suggesting that there might be firings during the shutdown. Do you think that will happen if the shutdown goes for a little bit of time, sir?
Well, there could be firings, and that's their fault. And it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut. So you could say, a lot of people are saying Trump wanted this, that I wanted this closing, and I didn't want it. But a lot of people are saying it because I'm allowed to cut things that should have never been approved in the first place. And I will probably do that.
El Trompito, keeping it real, keeping it gangster, keeping it a hundo. And let me tell you, keeping it 100% is the best thing he can do. I think it's very clear to me. What does Trump gain here? Not a whole lot, right? The power that the executive has is the power the executive has. He might have a little more power now because the Democrats are literally handing it to him because they're saying, look, we're not going to fund these things. We're not going to do our job. That's going to shut down the government. The executive doesn't shut down. The executive branch is still going. He's showing up to work every day, right? You see Trump every single day. So what does this mean? Well, this just means that this was a very poorly thought out thing by the Democrats, in my opinion. I mean, maybe I'll stand to recant these comments, but when have I ever done that, right? I mean, this is pretty clear to me that Democrats are doubling down every day, whether it's AOC, Pramila Jayapal, the other squad people, Klobuchar. I mean, you name it, all of them. Chuck Schumer. Oh, my goodness. Can he afford another Mexican hat meme? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you are missing out on such a great part of political satire, political humor. President Trump has been trolling him like the expert troll that he is. He's just doing a great job. Him and Hakeem Jeffries. And matter of fact, I think it was Hakeem Jeffries. I'm going to speak from loose recollection because I've seen so much stuff today. But I could swear I saw a video of Hakeem Jeffries or another prominent Democrat on CNN with Jake Tapper. And Jake Tapper fact-checking him live on the spot, saying, well, hold on a second. No, your plan does, in fact, allow illegal aliens to get Medicaid. And they're saying, no, it doesn't. But it does. It reverses what was done in the big, beautiful bill. And Jake Tapper, of all people, fake Tapper, calling out the Democrats. So I think I have a clip of that. Mr. Good went digging in the crates for it. Check this out.
Work with President Trump and Republicans to get this job done. As our party has done repeatedly in the same situation over the years, Democrats want to play political games with the lives and the livelihoods of Americans.
Republicans wanted to shut the government down. That's no surprise, because for decades, Republicans have consistently shut the government down as part of their efforts to try to extract and jam their extreme right-wing agenda down the throats of the American people.
The simple truth is Democrats in Congress have dragged our country into another reckless shutdown to satisfy their far-left base. That is the truth. Whether or not the government remains open or reopens is entirely up to them. There's still time for Democrats to pass this clean bipartisan bill that's sitting before them, and we encourage our Democrat colleagues to do that.
Again, that's Speaker Mike Johnson calling him out. And listen, the clip I was hoping we would get is the one where it was earlier today. Jake Tapper just says, hold on a second. And he goes on to say, look, I know that this allows for refugees, for people seeking asylum, and for people that are here illegally, as well as people that are resident aliens, right? So legal residents. But the bottom line was, in that, they snuck in this provision for illegal aliens. And that's the one that the Republicans said, oh, hell no, we're not doing that. Absolutely not. We're not going to allow that. And now they're trying to say that it's the Republicans doing this, that. No, it's the Democrats trying to push the issue. Again, making it very clear, super clear as I can possibly make it. What happens here is during when the Democrats proposed their last continuing resolution, this is the same exact resolution that they proposed. And I know you've heard this, but I'm just repeating it for the friends in the back that may be hard of hearing. And the only thing that was different here is that it's been adjusted for inflation. Outside of that, this is the Democrat bill. That's why they keep saying clean CR, meaning nobody added any political pork to it. This is a clean CR to keep the government open. This is literally when two guys are fighting and the third guy jumps in and the fourth guy gets in and tells the third guy, get out. It's a fair one between these two. Keep it clean, right? This is a clean bill. And guess what? They didn't want it. So now they've got their shutdown. And I think that this is going to come back to haunt them, because I just don't see the scenario where you could talk all you want in the media. It's not the Republicans that are going to be crying at the end of the day. It's going to be the Democrats. Anyway, I want to talk about this and the potential for firing people. Why? Because, again, as this goes on and it gets to that 60th day, Trump has the opportunity to send out those RIF notices, the reduction in force notices, and say, hey, look, we had to put these layoffs in place. It was necessary to restore fiscal sanity. And let me tell you, I think that is going to be where they hand Trump the keys to the kingdom. Are the Democrats willing to do that? I don't know, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Why are layoffs now necessary in this shutdown?
Because we have an administration and we have a president who are wholeheartedly focused on restoring fiscal sanity to our government and doing the right thing by the American taxpayer. We are $37 trillion in debt, and the federal government is currently shut down. There is no more money coming into the federal government's coffers. And as you've also seen since the beginning, in January, this administration is focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse. And so Democrats have given this administration an unenviable choice to have to take a look at the balance sheet and identify where these cuts and layoffs can be made.
That is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and just telling it like it is, dropping some facts that, guess what? If we do not get any reconciliation here where people come to the table, this will continue. And when we hit 60 days, those reduction in force notices are going to come out, and President Trump is going to start cleaning house. This is almost like Christmas before Halloween. I want to get the scoop on this from Rachel O'Brien. She's Deputy Public Policy Editor at OpenTheBooks.com, Open the Books Foundation, one of our favorites here. Rachel O'Brien, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rich.
You bet. So I know that you've done a lot of reporting on DOGE, and DOGE obviously recommending a lot of cuts on a number of different things. But this is a unique position that I think the administration is in, where they were fighting to get some of these cuts, and now it seems like the Democrats are handing it to them. How does this play out from your perspective?
Yeah, so, I mean, the way we look at it is there's so much more to be done than just what DOGE identified. So just starting with DOGE, we took really a fine-tooth comb to all of the claims that DOGE, claimed that they've identified in terms of savings. They've claimed, it was hundreds of billions, and then the numbers seem to change every time you check on it. And so we mined the data that was published at doge.gov and looked at, the grants and the contracts that DOGE claimed to have canceled that make up this bulk of the claimed savings. And we really found that fewer than half of them could be confirmed just by looking at the records that DOGE put out. And so we can only verify about 42% of contracts that were canceled and about 27% of grants just by reviewing the records that DOGE put out. So that's all to say we don't really know what the DOGE savings is or could have been. But the argument we're making, that we've made for a while, and we're making, again now, just as this shutdown is occurring, is going after this ballooning entitlement spending, really going after Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, of course, the largest and most costly programs that are really bleeding money in every way you can imagine. And I can give you example after example, if you'd like, just about how they can go about, how Congress can go about, how the president can go about reforming these programs. And we're not talking about necessarily dropping people from coverage. We're not necessarily talking about, trimming benefits. We're talking about waste, fraud, and abuse. That are really, ripe for the picking, easy, low-hanging fruit that both parties should be able to get behind.
Well, let me ask you about this, because I think that this is it seems like an opportunity for America, right? Irrespective of party, it seems like an opportunity to say, hey, let's, I don't know, pardon the pun here, open the books and really get to the bottom of this. And I feel that even the media is interested, which I find them normally disinterested. Jake Tapper calling Hakeem Jeffries to the carpet earlier today, saying, well, it's not a lie. I think that was the quote he said. It's not a lie. When he said that's a lie, that the Republicans are saying they're trying to have illegal immigrants have Medicaid. And Jake Tapper clarified that it was all legal residents, illegal immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees were all in the same bucket, and that was one of the non-negotiables for Republicans. And I think this has been from the political messaging, which is not really open the books problem, but they've been at it with saying it's the Republicans' fault, and the Republicans are saying it's the Democrats voting against the CR. But it seems to me that the facts aren't lining up for them, and there seems to be a real opportunity, irrespective of, if DOGE said it was this much and it ends up being less, it seems like there's going to be an opportunity for savings, no?
Right, exactly. Yeah, there should be an opportunity, right? If Congress takes the opportunity, if they, step aside for a moment, from the political fight, which is what they love to do, is have that political fight and just say, look, there's a way we can address this. So, we're sort of saying this mandatory spending, right, for Medicare and Social Security, it outweighs any cuts to discretionary spending, to DOGE cuts. And we wanted to sort of offer a reality check on this and highlight in particular one area, Medicare Part D.
I'm going to jump in here. I want to talk about Medicare at length, so we're going to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back with Rachel O'Brien, Deputy Public Policy Editor at OpenTheBooks.com, the Open the Books Foundation. Rachel O'Brien, stick with me. Amigos, don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdes.
Look at Rich Valdes. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Everybody needs to understand how this works. When Congress decides to turn off the lights, to shut the government down, it shifts the authority to the executive branch. That's how the process works. The person who has decided to put the White House in that situation is Chuck Schumer, who leads the Democrats, the 44 who keep voting to keep the government from opening up. They're voting to shut it down. So what happens in that situation? Whoever is the president, whoever is sitting in the White House, and their staffs at the Office of Management and Budget are given an unenviable task. It's a regretful situation. They have to then determine, since the spigots have been effectively turned off and there's no more money coming in, they have to then prioritize, triage effectively, federal spending. They have to look at all of that and say, which things are deemed essential and which are non-essential, which priorities, policies, and personnel must be kept to keep the government operating, and which are less of a priority. So whomever is sitting in the White House gets to then apply their lenses of review. We happen to have a Republican, a conservative administration. We're very grateful for that. We're limited government conservatives. We think the government's too big. We think the federal government is too big. It does too many things, and it does almost nothing well. And so it serves the taxpayers to send less of their hard-earned money to Washington and keep more in their pockets. That's what we're advancing through the One Big Beautiful Bill and all the legislative priorities that we achieve. But see, sometimes Democrats, not sometimes, all the time, Democrats don't agree with that because they love big government. I mean, listen to them. They want the government to control every aspect of your lives, and they need all of your hard-earned dollars to do that. In fact, they'd like to take them all. That's what the socialists are arguing for. That's what the Marxists believe. We believe the opposite. So here's this situation. Here's the president, the current occupant of the White House, that's been given this opportunity by Chuck Schumer. And he's a limited government conservative. He's looking at that and saying, gee, this is inefficient. This is ineffective. And we'd never get Democrat votes to limit that because they never vote to limit government, ever. It's against their religion. But he has that opportunity now to say this is a program that would serve the American people if it were not funded, because government would be more efficient and effective, and that serves everyone. So they're going to make those decisions.
They're going to make that decision. Again, that's Speaker Mike Johnson, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. And the bottom line here is there's a lot to work through. We're still in the same place. Lots of talk, no action on behalf of the Democrats. They seem to, the action's there. They keep voting against it. Republicans keep trying to open the government. Now, I want to get into some of the back and forth and pick up where we left off. We were speaking with Rachel O'Brien, Deputy Public Policy Editor at Open the Books Foundation, and we were talking specifically about some of the costs associated with Medicare and how that's the largest part, that and Social Security are, the biggest chunks of our federal spending. Rachel O'Brien, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
So let's pick up where you left off with respect to, I think you were making a point and the music came in, and I don't know if everybody got it, so feel free to make that point again.
Well, I don't remember where we left off, but yeah, it's Medicare, right? It's Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, these entitlement programs that just have so much massive waste, fraud, and abuse that there's so many areas where we can touch upon. So we did a little investigating of Medicare Part D, that's the prescription drug coverage for seniors. And we looked at just the top 1,000 providers who are writing these prescriptions. They're associated with $11 billion worth of spending in 2023. So that's more than the $9 billion that was saved by the July rescission package. So, right, you talk about everything that went into that rescission package. It doesn't even cover what we spent on these prescriptions. And that's just the first top 1,000 providers. It's actually larger than that. And so, prescribers are responsible for tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars worth of drugs. There is waste, fraud, and abuse in all of these entitlement programs. We know that. And so, we're not necessarily implying that these providers are engaging in anything other than lawful conduct, but it points to a larger issue with this mandatory spending, right? Especially healthcare spending in the United States. It's grossly inefficient and wasteful. And we can see why the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services had the largest improper payments every year. Last year, every year, there were $87 billion in improper payments last year. And so it behooves Congress, the White House, to look into these programs, just to agree, Republicans and Democrats, they've got to do something about this.
Rachel, when you say improper payments, just clarify so that everybody knows what we're talking about.
So improper payments are not fraudulent payments. They are usually mistakes, for lack of a better term. They're the wrong payment for the wrong amount or to the wrong person. An overpayment, someone who used to be eligible for something no longer are eligible. Some people who've died are still getting payments. So it doesn't even count the fraud, right? When you look at fraud in Medicare, the DOJ charged 324 people in June with defrauding Medicare, $14.6 billion. That's just one massive sweep that they did there. And this happens all the time.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the fraud, okay, great, DOJ is going after fraud. Improper payments. This is something that both sides should be able to get behind. It is a massive problem every single year. And then even Medicare Advantage. We've recently talked about where it allows seniors to get health insurance through private companies, and those private companies are reimbursed by the government. There's fraud there as well. Two of the largest
Let me
companies,
just jump in and say there's got to be fraud there. Why? Because my phone rings like 6 times a day where they say, we're calling about your Medicare Advantage plan. I'm like, man, I'm 47. I don't have any Medicare Advantage.
I get those calls too. Absolutely. So, there is fraud and it's out in the open, right? It is so obvious. It's almost like it's too obvious for it to be happening, but it is, right? And so there have been government audits, there have been independent studies for years that have shown that the two largest Medicare Advantage providers find a way to get higher payments from the government. Payments they're not entitled to. The companies themselves. We're not talking about bots or hackers, someone, from Africa, stealing your identity. We're talking about United Healthcare and Humana. They're the largest health insurance providers for Medicare Advantage, and they're able to change the codes, the risk scores of their patients. They get reimbursed based on the risk scores of their patients, how sick they are, and so they embellish, they put into the patient's records any sort of little issue they're having, whether they're getting treated for it or not. And so they're getting reimbursed based on how sick their patients appear on paper. This has been found to be true time and time again. The Medicare Payment Advisory Commission found that Medicare Advantage providers are using favorable selection. They're deliberately seeking patients who look sick on paper so they can get paid more money. So we know this is happening. Why it's allowed to happen is really unclear. And so taking aim at that alone can save billions of dollars every single year. And it shouldn't be a political issue. It should be something that both sides should get behind.
Yeah, I agree with that. Folks, FYI, we're on with Rachel O'Brien, Deputy Public Policy Editor at Open the Books Foundation, openthebooks.com. And if you make your way over to Open the Books, you'll see a couple of different things they're working on. And one of the things they're working on under their investigations is Mamdani's affordability agenda and how costly it could be. Now, Rachel, I don't know if this is something you work on. Don't feel pressured to answer any of this stuff. But I see this, and I know that you're a New Yorker. And this is something, of course, near and dear to my heart. And I mean, what's your just initial thought, if you're willing to opine on what this free everything agenda looks like from your perspective?
So I will say that, Mamdani does talk, like most politicians, right, does talk about his plans to do lots of things that he actually has no power to do on his own. In many cases, he needs the city council, which are very liberal, right? In many cases, he needs he may need the state. In some cases, a few of them. We both know a couple who are good apples, but for the most part of the 51 members of the city council, they will go along with a lot of his agenda, but not all of it. And so he does need some approval. There are some checks. Yes, absolutely. He is one of the most, or if not the most liberal candidates to ever run for mayor. And the real issue that we see time and time again is he is inherently anti-law enforcement. He's tried to walk back his comments about defunding the police.
Defund the police comments, yeah.
Absolutely. He's tried to walk it back, now that he's trying to appeal to a larger, more mainstream voter base. But it's very clear from his past that he is very anti-MIPD. He actually wants to have the CCRB, which is the Civilian Complaint Review Board. They review complaints against police currently. and they essentially recommend if a police officer should be suspended or removed from the force.
Right.
Mamdani wants to make them not just a recommendation, not an advisory board, but they actually would be able to remove police officers. And those members of that board, they are anti-police. Yeah. They are activists. And so, that is
and they're
a really
unelected.
scary thought. They're unelected. Absolutely. And so that's the sort of thing that is a little frightening to think about, that he could actually have this group really removing police officers. And it is incredibly difficult across the country to recruit police officers, and especially in New York, where they're seen as not being supported. And so, there's a legitimate fear, especially when it comes to law enforcement. And so we're hoping that cooler heads will prevail, and not.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised in this election. I'm not as afraid. Maybe I live with my head in the sand, or my head in the sky. But I'm very hopeful that it's going to be a really positive outcome. Rachel, let everybody know how they can find you and keep up to speed with the amazing work you're doing at Open the Books.
Yeah, you mentioned our website before, openthebooks.com. We also have a very active Substack where we post all of our pieces, openthebooks.substack. You can also find us on Twitter or X, Instagram and Facebook. We're on all social media. But spreading the word on your show. I appreciate you having me and listening to us. Really, we're on national Sinclair stations every week. So if you are in a city where you have a Sinclair station, TV station, check us out. We're there every week.
Outstanding. That's good to know. Rachel O'Brien, Deputy Public Policy Editor at Open the Books. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. You're a gentlewoman, a patriot, and a scholar. Godspeed to you. And take care. My best to your family. And amigos, we continue. Your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
Or he was like, "You're going to be my wife." And I was like, okay.
Did you ever have a romantic relationship, an intimate relationship with the mayor while he was in City Hall?
No. So I hadn't laid a finger on him for 10 years.
You wrote that Mayor Adams warned you that you were on the radar of federal investigators.
Yeah.
Did he ever encourage you to lie or to not tell the whole truth?
So, no. In fact, it was very painful for me because once I said, "Hey, I just got interrogated," the first thing he said to me was, "We can't talk." After that indictment, I never recovered. I didn't like reporting to work. I really something in me turned off. It was like a circus. And it was very traumatizing.
Well, that is a clip of Mayor Adams. I don't want to call her a side chick or a side piece because that would be offensive. So I'm going to call her a romantic interest of his that he was romantically involved with and got her a job. She was making $160,000 a year on the public payroll. And this young woman, an attractive young woman, I would add, who was at one point dating Mayor Adams, says that she was hurt and traumatized that he wouldn't talk to her once she was indicted or interrogated. Again, this is the same Eric Adams who now dropped out of the race. So I know some of you are thinking, why are we talking about Eric Adams? He's already out. To prove the point that I wasn't saying this for political purposes, the stuff I said was true. Eric Adams had no business being mayor of the city of New York. just like Andrew Cuomo has no business being mayor of the city of New York. So that's what this election now is boiling down to, is who's it going to be? And it's a three-man race between Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate. Then you've got Zoran Mamdani, the Democrat socialist candidate. And then you have an independent candidate who happens to be the former governor of New York, who resigned in disgrace because of a series of sexual harassment claims, and the fact that he was grossly unpopular because of executive orders that he'd signed placing COVID-infected people into nursing homes with vulnerable old people who ended up dying. About 15,000 old people died as a result of Cuomo's executive order. And he doubles down and says that this is all Trump's fault, and it was Trump who was the bad guy. I just don't understand the reality of life here when I have people telling me that the only way we can win is if we go with Cuomo. Excuse me. A failed governor, somebody who's already been beaten by Mamdani? They ran against each other in June. Last I checked, June was like 4 months ago. Maybe my math is off, but whatever, right? June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, 4 months. That's it. 3 if you really want to pressure, count the other way. So why? Why is that the case? Well, again, there are people that want to see New York City fall. There are people that say, you know what, give them a commie. And I've been wanting to address this for a little while. I'm going to take a quick pause in a moment, but I oftentimes hear things like, oh, what a disgrace. I can't believe you people voted for AOC. I can't believe you guys voted for Mayor Adams. You get the government you deserve. You deserve what you voted for. Imagine if somebody were to look at America during the Biden years or the Obama years and say, you people get what you deserve. Does nobody realize that there are entire states that voted against that? There are entire boroughs and cities at the state level that don't vote for that. It's the same way. I mean, while there's no electoral college, the people are people. And it's beside me how people will just literally sell off, write off humanity. And like, oh, well, you deserve it. You guys are all commies. How? How are we all commies? Right? New York is a place that produced many a great patriot. President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Sean Hannity. Me. Unbelievable. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, America, welcome back. I want to hit the phones. Let's go to a couple of our regulars as we end this weekend here, or kick off the weekend, end of the week, I should say. Tony, Montreal, Canada, listening on WVMT. Go for it, brother.
How you doing? I didn't expect to be on so quickly, but I talked to your producer, and I said I have no faith in anything that Hamas does. Anything that Hamas did was to provoke a worldwide intifada by but creating an incident of death. They killed 1,400 people. They kidnapped people, and then from this, they asked for the sympathy of the world in the left, in universities, and all over the world, in the Western world. They're protesting. Why? Because they're saying that the Israelis bombed them. Well, if you come to Montreal from Plattsburgh and you attack Montreal and you kill 1,400 people, Canada will react. That's exactly what Israel did, and the left doesn't understand.
Yeah, 100% right. 100% right, Tony. You have to defend yourself, and thankfully they released the hostages so that we can move forward with peace. So amen to that. Thank you, brother. Have a great weekend. Amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdes.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program. We are live and national. Happy to be here with you this Friday night, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. And here's the number if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. And the government is still shut down. Good old Jake Tapper was fact-checking the Democrats today, literally putting Minority Leader Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries, in his place. Check this out.
Donald Trump blessed it as well.
So let me ask you about a provision that the Republicans are talking about quite a bit. I know you want to talk about, and Democrats want to talk about, extending the Obamacare subsidies, which expire at the end of 2025. But they talk about the provisions, and it's right here, subtitle E, and this has to do with the repeal of healthcare subtitle changes, and specifically what it is. How they characterize it is you want to give health insurance to undocumented immigrants. I understand that's not really an accurate depiction, but what it does do is...
It's a lie.
It's a lie, but what you support does bring back funding for emergency Medicaid to hospitals, some of which does pay for undocumented immigrants and people who don't have health insurance. And also there is this provision, and it's not about undocumented immigrants, it's about people with asylum seekers and people with temporary protected status, et cetera, but about their ability to get Medicaid. So they're non-citizens, they're not undocumented, they're not illegal. Why even include that in a bill knowing that they're going to seize right upon that and use that to message? I understand that
Donald Trump.
That is, again, Jake Tapper actually trying to fact-check Jeffries. And, of course, former Speaker Jeffries, he's a minority leader, forgive me, he's having a tough time with his response to that. And the reality is here, it's not that it's a lie. It's really not a lie, right? They have tried to lump these people in all together to try and make this case. There are, as I understand it, illegal aliens that can be built into this model that they've created that includes refugees, asylum seekers, as well as legal residents. And that is what the problem is. This is in contravention, if you will, of the big, beautiful bill, which specifically calls for no illegal immigrant to get funding. So Medicaid in particular. So this is the issue that they're facing. And I don't think this is going to be one that they win, right? Because, again, you have to go back with who's really rooting for them, right? Who's really saying, look, I go to work every day and I pay my taxes. If I earn $1,000 and I come home with $550 or $600, those $400, I want that to go to illegal immigrants. Nobody's saying that. Nobody wants their tax dollars to go to other people that aren't citizens of this country. They want it to go to services that benefit them and their families and their neighborhoods and Americans, right? Having a military, having a fire department, all those nice things that people think they're getting when they pay taxes. So why double down on this if you're Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the Democrat Party in the House of Representatives? Why? Why would you double down and try to make this case here and keep pushing back? Remember, if you are on defense, you're losing, right? You've got to stay on offense. And that's where they are. These guys are up against the ropes. You know who's not up against the ropes? El Trumpito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, right? As well as the 47th. He's not against the ropes. Republicans are not against the ropes. Mike Johnson's not up against the ropes. Republicans are hanging loose. And quite simply, because it makes all the sense in the world for them to hang loose. There is zero reason why Republicans would want to, other than, politically, right? I mean, in reality, you want to fund the government. You want things to work well. You want to make sure that the WIC program has its funding. You want to make sure that the people in the military are being paid for their service. Ideally, you don't want to have a government shutdown. It's a fail-safe measure that is put in place for when there's a failure to make sure that we're balancing our budget and doing what we got to do. Democrats think that this is going to be their moment where they can hang this on Trump and say, remember when Trump shut down your government? He didn't care, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is, I think this is a losing message for them. I do not think that this is going to work to their benefit. And Hakeem Jeffries saying that he's not going to fund Trump's extreme agenda. That's fine. You don't have to. But just know, at the end of the day, you're the one that loses because more of your constituents are going to be the ones that start barking, saying, hey, what's going on? When are you going to open this? How many times can you say, but Trump, but Trump, but Trump, but the Republicans? When you know it's not going to be the Republicans calling Mike Johnson and Trump in the White House saying, you need to open the government. They're not. Republicans aren't going to do that. Look at me. I cheer it on every single day. So this is a losing strategy for Democrats. And I hope that we get away from it soon, honestly, because if that 60 days kicks in, it's a done deal. We're going to see DOGE and everything else that has been proposed in so much as draining the swamp. We're going to see it all come to fruition. Now, I also want to talk about a Gallup poll. There's this Gallup poll out there. 31% of employees are engaged in their work. 6% of salaried workers are Taylor Swift's fans. They call them Swifties. And they are skipping work Friday, today, for Taylor Swift's new album. Now, this is interesting to me because why on earth are people getting a paycheck if only 31% of them are actually engaged in their work? The 6% I could live with, right? People take off of work all the time. I was about to take off of work to go to the Bad Bunny concert not that long ago. Yep, I was. I didn't pull the trigger fast enough, and I missed my opportunity. I didn't like the seats. I waited to see if I get better seats. Good luck. I was not getting anything better. In fact, they sold the seats I wanted, and then that was a wrap. But you also got more than a third of U.S. workers, 36%, identifying as a fan of Taylor Swift. And they're very likely to be distracted when Taylor Swift releases her upcoming studio album. This is a pretty fascinating thing to me. But I want to have a conversation about this, and not so much from the Taylor Swift perspective, which is interesting, but more so why why these large numbers of people are so distracted, I would say, and why so few are actually locked in and focused on their work. I mean, if you told me these were a bunch of kids that are just out of high school and they're learning how to, work in a corporate environment, I'd say, well, it makes sense. It takes a while to get acclimated. But we're talking about 1/3 of U.S. workers, 36%, 31% of workers only being engaged in their work. I mean, that's kind of nutty to me. So we're going to talk about that and a bunch of other stats related to the workplace and how bosses can handle this and really what the effect is on the overall state of affairs in America. And we're going to do that with our guest, Dr. Jonathan Thorp. He's a doctor of business administration, the CEO of Quantum Connections, and he's coming up straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Swifties were definitely in their up all night era. That's because The Life of a Showgirl, her 12th studio album, dropped at midnight, and we got to catch up with some excited fans who were at Target stores like the one here in Seekonk. Now, the Target store on Route 2 in Warwick was open, but not the one at the Warwick Mall. In Massachusetts, midnight releases happened in North Attleboro, Dartmouth, Plainville, Taunton, and right here in Seekonk. Fans could only buy limited numbers of each Swift item offered at Target stores. Here are some of those psyched Swifties ready to get their hands on her new music.
When I first got the first album, it was, her playing the teardrops on her guitar. So it's kind of cool to see my kids, become fans too. It's emotional, and it's exciting.
Very excited.
Yeah,
we're all big fans.
Yes, we're all very big fans. We love listening to her songs.
So that is the latest on Taylor Swift's new album coming out. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. I'm kidding. I'm feeling more like 35 or 36. But I wanted to get into this because this release of Taylor Swift's 12th studio album is causing a lack of productivity, right? People are saying employee engagement is crashing. And I think this is pretty interesting. This is according to the Gallup poll. Check this out.
Okay, have you seen the latest employee engagement data from Gallup? According to their research, and as of March 2025, employee engagement has hit a 10-year low. Their report showed that only 31% of employees are actually engaged at work, while 17% have completely checked out. That's not just bad vibes, it's a multi-trillion-dollar problem. Companies with engaged employees make 23% more profit, while disengaged employees cost businesses trillions in lost productivity.
So trillions of dollars lost in a lack of productivity. That's scary to think you could lose that kind of money, but that's apparently what Gallup is saying is going on. So I want to get to the bottom of that with somebody who knows exactly what's going on. Dr. Jonathan Thorp, he's a doctor of business administration, the CEO of Quantum Connections, and he's with us now. Doc, welcome.
Rich, hi. Love the show. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I want to get your take on this. This is very interesting. Obviously, just as a standalone topic, I think the lack of productivity being that high, right? A third of your workers not doing their job is eye-opening to me. But in light of Taylor Swift's album coming out, I think that's it's so funny to me because James Comey's very famous for talking about his affinity for Taylor Swift. So we know that this spans generations. But let's talk about it from either perspective. This is all news to me, Dr. Thorp.
Yeah, the 31% number gets your attention. And what's maybe even a little bit more alarming is that we're now at a 10-year low. Beyond that, 31% in this country, but internationally, it's down to 21% engagement. And beyond that, the managers are expressing the greatest decline. So if you're worried about the workforce, the people that are supposed to be guiding, leading, inspiring those workers are even more disengaged. So it is a troubling stat that we've got our eyes on.
Can we blame it all on Taylor Swift, or is it something bigger?
I wish we could. It's starting to get tracked. It's become so prevalent that now we've got a whole system of tracking this motion on the way out of a company. It starts with ghost growth and then becomes quiet cracking, then quiet quitting, then finally stay quitting, and then actual quitting. So it's a real phenomenon out there that we've got to
Tell me a little about some of these terms, Doc, because I'm not familiar with ghost growth and the other one. I've heard of quiet quitting during COVID, but tell me about the others.
For sure, Rich. Ghost growth takes place when people are offered additional responsibilities, greater tasks, and more work responsibilities at work with no increase in pay, no change in title. So because we're all flexing in this new environment, trying to learn more, grow more, they're adding more work without any recognition. So that's where the stressors start. Then we get to quiet cracking. Quiet cracking is when all of this stress starts to fracture. And actually people reach the limit and say no more. And they start to disengage when they've surpassed healthy limits of stress. Then we fall into quiet quitting. And that's like if you were to take a light switch and turn the dimmer all the way down, they're physically present, but minimal engagement. That becomes stay quitting, where they've actually switched themselves off and show up just to collect the paycheck, and then they finally actually quit. So this whole system of migrating out of a company now has become a thing.
Wow. This is before we move on, I just want to dig into these a little bit because I think they're very interesting. I was a manager for a little while, and I could say I've seen a little bit of this, not a lot. But the first one you mentioned, which was stay quitting, I've seen that. That I used to call that one just lazy, and I would help them out with that. But the step right before that, I thought was interesting. The ghost growth. Because, that's just unfair. I think we can call that exploitation in many ways. And my children are young, right? 20 and 24. And my youngest one is, she works part-time at one of those places where you take your kid to jump on trampolines and whatnot. And it's a great, she's doing phenomenally well there. But I tell her, as they give you more responsibility, do not be afraid or ashamed or shy to thank them very politely when they give you a compliment, and to tell them, put it on my check. Because if you don't ask for money, they'll think it's okay to just give you a pat on the back. And none of us go to work for a pat on the back.
What's interesting is generationally, people fall down on both sides of this. There are people that also refuse to lift an additional finger unless that shows up in their pay. And they say, hey, I'm not going to demonstrate additional performance until I get paid for it. That's not my job. And yet, so some people are being coached, demonstrate the work, lead with performance, and pay will follow. But on the other end of that extreme, you can also, like you said, perhaps even be exploitative and take too much from folks without even recognizing them. If it doesn't translate into compensation, at least recognize the extra effort. And sometimes that buys you time to where your budget can support, pay increases for your people.
Dr. Thorp, there's this is just a real genuine question from my own naivete here, but I've always found that you could take someone, most of the time have found, you can take someone that's like, listen, I've got too much on my plate. And if you turn to that person and say, I just fired this person over here that was really dead weight, and I'm going to take half of their salary, let's just say $25,000, $5,000 I'm going to have to use for something else, but I'm going to take 20 grand from that and I'm going to give it to you. So if you were making 50, now you're making 70. Are you still as stressed? And it's amazing how the stress goes away.
Money is a funny way of doing that, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of times it's people want to feel good about what they do, and they can be stressed, but they'll figure out how to deal with that stress very quickly if they feel they're adequately compensated. It's when it's, not adequate compensation where it's, you're worth another 5 or 7 or 10 grand, and they're like, hey, we're going to give you a $1,500 increase this year. And you're like, come on, bro. I'm paying more than that in taxes for your increase. And that's, I think, where people, where the rubber meets the road, especially for people that are competent and people that are working hard. So, Doc, I want you to stick with me. I want to continue to talk about this because you have a really firm grasp on it. And it's one of those things I think we don't look at enough. Amigos, we're on with Dr. Jonathan Thorp. He's a doctor of business administration and the CEO of Quantum Connections. And we're going to continue talking about just this situation in the workplace where people just are not being productive like they used to be. What's that all about? Are they like me? Do they have ADHD? What is going on? I want to know the answer to that. And of course, your thoughts, calls, and opinions as well. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdes.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if the viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Just want to talk about a little thing that I hear often
or just like the sentiment going around that is this, around like, well, employees are at home and they're in their pajamas and they're surfing the internet and they're taking naps and they're not working and they're not being productive, and we need to get them back into the office so they can like be productive again. Just want to like let you in on a little secret. Those people, even sitting in an office clocked in for 8 hours a day in front of their computer and were never productive. I mean, it's true. Companies historically have done a pretty bad job of being able to like measure how productive people are, other than like, are you clocked in and sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day? The game has changed in terms of like how you measure people's productivity and where they work, looking at different metrics to be like, is this person valuable? Are they doing their job? Are they productive? That was always bad. Mediocre employees who aren't productive have always been unproductive. It's not a surprise. Now they're just being unproductive at home. And people who are amazingly productive, that are like top tier, intentional, awesome employees, are at home being top tier, crushing it.
Top tier, intentional employees crushing it. I've known in my time, it's always hard to find people that are, high achiever, top performer. Not everybody's going to be a superstar. I get that in everything, right? Not just in your workplace, like when you go somewhere, when you go to your mechanic, when you go to the deli, wherever you go, you have to be prepared to deal with people that are like, that's not my job, or you got to wait, that type of thing. But I want to get to the crux of some of this. Why? Why is it that some people don't want to be the best that they can be? Is it they resent their pay? They're just genuinely, I'm going to use the word lazy because I can. Are they lazy? Are they just uninterested? And I want to do that with our guest. Our guest is Dr. Jonathan Thorp, DBA, Doctor of Business Administration. He's the CEO of Quantum Connections. And Dr. Thorp, we're talking about, a bunch of people that are just not rising to their full potential. You heard the clip. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this gets discussed a lot, Rich, as a workplace problem, but I think it's much broader than that. It's a relational problem that might take place at work, but it also might take place at home or out in town. And what I mean by that is there's some root causes here that really affect an employee's willingness to work hard, their level of commitment. And in most cases, it's tied directly to how much connection they feel to their boss or to the cause or to the workplace. And so what I see generally are really three principal causes. There are probably a half dozen, but maybe the first three that come to mind are, the first one are unmet expectations, that the expectations of them and the expectations that they have of their boss are never discussed. And yet because they're never discussed, both parties go on and frustrate each other, thinking they're meeting the demands and the needs when they don't know what the demands and the needs are. So
sounds like a romantic relationship.
Same thing. In a way, it is personal. I mean, there is certainly a personal aspect of it that we maintain professionalism at work, but the same rules apply to personal relationships in marriage and things like that. I think the second one that I see a lot of is culture being out of alignment. When people describe a workplace culture, they think, oh, our workplace is either patriotic or service-minded or family-oriented, a lot of these things. But culture is really 3 layers deep, at least 3 layers deep. It's the culture that an organization wants to have. It's also the culture that they actually have, supported by evidence like absenteeism and participation and what the town halls all look like. And then finally, the third layer of culture that's rarely discussed is what people believe it to be inside in the privacy of their own head. And the problem is if you have no relationship with your boss, you're not ever willing to discuss what you believe about culture. And so people go on to mistake that the culture is just what the company wants. And if the employee sees any kind of disalignment, any kind of misalignment, then they fall out of favor. They think that the company is not being genuine or authentic, and they start to lose pace on supporting the initiatives. That's a big one. And the third one is gaps in management and leadership, where new leaders, new managers are so inadequately trained. They succeed in their first couple of roles and get promoted overnight into a leadership role without being qualified. And so you often hear people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses, but probably more true is that they're leaving untrained bosses. And so we've got to get in there and coach all 3 of those aspects. You've got to close the expectation gap. You got to bridge the belonging gap in culture. And you got to fill the capability gap with people that have both management and leadership skills. We see a lot of companies hang on and wait, and they'll say, we'll teach you management first, And in 15 or 20 years, then we'll break out the leadership skills. And it's too late, because you need management skills today for the status quo, and you need leadership skills today to manage and lead change.
Man, so much right there. It really is. I think you're right. I think the first part of it, you said it was a relational problem that's occurring at work. I would have described it as a character issue that's happening at work, but I think your assessment's better, because I think you're right. If their onboarding process, if you don't feel extraordinarily welcomed, or let's say you do feel extraordinarily welcomed, you're like, man, what a great bunch of people. They're so nice. But yet you feel extraordinarily unprepared and ill-equipped to do the job you're being asked to do because of a lack of training, because of a lack of resources, equipment that doesn't work, then how does that make you feel? You're like, oh, I work with a bunch of nice people, but they left me for dead, right?
That's right.
You can distill it all. Cause that connection problem.
And it causes that connection problem quickly, and we can distill it down to a simple question. And that's, how seen and heard do you feel by your immediate supervisor? And that one question is like magic litmus that gives us insight as to what someone is really feeling about the level of connection they have at work. And that's one of the ways that we help both individuals and organizations at Quantum Connections, is we help either prove them right or prove them wrong. These organizations that think they're really good at communication, and sometimes they know they're not. But in either case, we can actually go in and take a snapshot and really give them some teachable insights to really improve their culture.
Wow. Now, in a couple of minutes, and you don't have to give the whole bag away, but how do you help, right? So how do you help somebody? And you just gave some insight into that. But if you go to an organization, and you can pick whichever one you like, honestly, because to me, these problems probably happen in corner store bodegas the same way they happen in big multinationals. People are people, and I think they tend to probably make the same mistakes no matter where they are, like the ones you're talking about, where people just don't feel connected. I wouldn't put that 100% on the employee. I'd say it's largely on, like you said, their immediate supervisor and that initial onboarding process, making them feel like they're part of a team and prepared to go forward. How do you help that? I'm guessing, you go somewhere and you speak with some CEO and he's like, yeah, here, talk to my VP and director of this, that, and the other. And then they look at you and they're like, I don't know if I like this Quantum Connections guy, right? Do you face that a lot?
We do. And I don't fault anybody for kind of walking into this with a little trepidation, because we're about ready to give them a transparent assessment of things they could do to help themselves. And sometimes that falls pretty tough on the ears. And so to that, I would say one of the first things you have to investigate is how much psychological safety is really on the floor, in the shop, or at the conference table. And by psychological safety, I mean, how willing are people to speak up, to take a risk, to fail, to admit mistakes? I mean, unfortunately, I think psychological safety kind of has fallen into the woke basket, where people think, maybe a little too soft for today's workplace. But really, it's the heart
I agree with you.
of setting everything else up. Yeah.
I'll tell you, Dr. Thorp, I worked for a guy named Melvin Weiner. Haven't talked to him in many years. He owns a small college in Manhattan. And I remember he had the type of personality that caused you to feel like you were walking on eggshells. He was a real tough dude. But I remember one day he looked at me and he said, Richard, you're one of us. You're here. You're a pillar. You're not getting fired. He literally said those words to me because he noticed I was being very political in my answers. And he didn't like my political answers that were very safe. He wanted me to go out on a limb and go all in for him and for the company. And I couldn't do that because I wasn't sure where I stood with him. And he figured all that out because, he was a smart businessman. But not everybody is the owner of the company. And that's what you're talking about, that psychological safety. If people don't feel safe to say, I don't know what you guys are doing, but this is a recipe for disaster. If you can't speak that freely in your workplace, then you're not able to help them to your full potential.
What's so true, Rich, is you see these companies that have very low scores that suggest they have very low connectivity. And they say, well, I don't understand why our disengagement is so low. And you spend a day in their offices and experience the total lack of psychological safety. And there's your answer. It's because they're not getting any kind of read or honest feedback. And so people say nothing. And so the company is fooled into thinking like we have no problem, when in fact the problems are just not being discussed in a safe environment.
Man, I tell you, you're good at this. I've had the benefit. I worked in higher ed. I dealt with a lot of consultants. A lot of them are full of it, totally full of it. But you really seem to have a good handle on this. And I wish you good luck in what you're doing. And I hope everybody hires you, because you seem like you know what you're doing, honestly. Dr. Jonathan Thorp, Doctor of Business Administration, CEO of Quantum Connections. I could talk to you for another hour because there's so much. Maybe we'll have you back and we'll do like an open phone segment with you where people can call in and complain about their boss, and you can kind of give them your 2 cents on it.
Yeah, be happy to. I appreciate the time tonight.
You bet. Thanks, Dr. Thorp. And amigos, coming right back, your thoughts, calls, and more. What's going on with employee engagement? What's going on with Hamas and the peace deal? Is it going to move forward? Are they going to keep their word? And everything else that we're talking about tonight. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
Kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdes, 833-482-5337. That's the phone number. You can call now, 833-4-VALDES. We're going to get to your calls momentarily. I just wanted to remind you, there was a legal case a while back. I don't know if you remember, out of the state of Georgia, a lady named Funny Willis, right? Remember Funny Willis? Well, good old Funny Willis, she brought a RICO case, right? A racketeering, organized crime case against Trump and a bunch of Trump administration people, trying to fool the American people into thinking that these people were some sort of government gangsters trying to do all this wrong stuff. And guess what happened today? Yep. A judge in Fulton County, Georgia, has given the state's prosecuting attorney's council a deadline for what? To find a new district attorney because she has been disqualified. So Funny Willis, goodbye. And she was a disaster. I mean, I don't know if you remember. She went on the stand very proudly to defend herself and then started talking about how she had money and she was keeping cash in the house and she was raised to keep stacks of cash around. You're talking like, stacks and stacks of thousands of dollars. It was just, again, it was so bizarre and had no place in the courtroom. And then it came out that she had a relationship with somebody who had a problem with the rapper Young Thug. And then she prosecuted Young Thug. And she was really exactly what they were claiming Trump was. She was doing all of that. She was using the power of her office to go after political enemies. Well, anyway, Funny Willis today, they said, you've got to go, and they've got a deadline now to get out and get a new prosecutor to bring the case for the Trump 2020 election interference case, which, as we all know, the whole thing is a fake, phony fraud. They're going to get a new prosecutor, and no, it's not going to go anywhere because she was bringing this as a, as a political ploy. So, adios to Funny Willis. Now, and her name is Fanny, but she pronounces it Fani. So I call her Funny, F-A-N-I. All right, let us hit the phones here. I want to go to my man Marcus calling us from Washington, D.C., WMAL. Go right ahead, sir.
Hey, Rich, thank you for the show. There's so many things I want to touch on. Great show.
Thank you.
Having worked in the private sector and then running my own business, I understand the productivity thing on a deeper level. Two things. One, you gave your daughter great advice. Sometimes in the job you get past praise me and you're at pay me. So that's great advice to her. Make sure she stands on that and willing to move on to another job when they don't. Number two, my wife's Colombian, and before we got married, I wanted them to visit my parents, but of course we were denied after going through this lengthy 1.5-year process. And one of the things that they give you is say that they want to make sure that you don't go and become on public services, even though they vetted her finances. I was giving guarantees, all that. So the idea of even giving $1 to any type of medical, any type of services to illegal aliens is totally something I'm against, because if somebody like my wife, who's doing the process as the United States government laid out that they want people to come into the country, if that's not something that you do, then I don't want it for anyone who crossed the border illegally.
Yeah, listen,
Thirdly,
I'm with you. Oh, let me just comment on that, because I think that's a brilliant point you made. And I was talking to, I had a lunch meeting with a mayor in a small town near where I live just yesterday, the day before. And he said, Democrats, and he's a Democrat, and he said the Democrats screwed this up. They tried to go after Trump saying immigration, immigration, immigration. He said, you know who they pissed off? Immigrants. The ones like your wife that came here that had to go to you and say, who's going to take care of you? Who's going to sponsor you? That's how everybody else comes to this country. And they pissed off a lot of legal immigrants.
And if you think about the numbers from Latino men and Latinos in general, their numbers were the ones, and they dogged us as black people in black community for voting for Trump. But our numbers were similar to 2016 and 2020. The numbers that went up exponentially were Latinos, right?
Yeah.
So because most Latinos that I know, that I grew up with, they had to assimilate, they learned English. Some of their parents didn't and never taught them Spanish because they didn't want the negative connotation of having the accent. And so, we got into a multiculturalism recently. But they're like, hey, I had to struggle. I had to work. Nobody gave me anything. You're not sending me your dollars to people you think just look like me. Doesn't mean I identify with them. And so, of course, the Democrats have that identity politics where they think like one Latino is for all Latinos, and it doesn't work that way.
That's so true,
the last
man.
point I wanted to say...
I'll let you make your point. I just want to make another comment.
Okay.
That is, people tell me, I've been criticized. They go, you sound white on the radio. And I say, you know what? Grow up with my dad, who came from the mountains in Puerto Rico and made sure that I learned how to speak English right at his hand. And if I sounded any slang, any of that, he was like, yo, what? And people don't realize the struggle, what it was in my era, the Gen X era. Now it's like, oh, you have an accent? You're cool. That wasn't cool when I was a kid. We were shunned for that.
No, it wasn't.
So it was a good point.
I understood that.
Go ahead. Make your third point.
The last point is that I work as a business consultant job at a radio reading service for the blind. And I got to the job to consult kind of like how people are working there. And it's like basically one guy does all the work when something needs to get done. But everyone receives their paycheck equally. So I made a joke, like how many people does it take to change a light bulb in the location? And then before they answer, I say the guy's names, like, comedic, like no one puts in. Uniquely, I had to go and open my own business with some, because I got to the past praise me and pay me. And what I've learned is that when a supervisor finds what I call the mule of the job, the person who's willing to do it, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. It seems simple to offer half of someone's salary that they got rid of, because we actually just did that. But the problem is that when you have people, and I'll contextualize to the government, when you have people who don't have training in leadership, like Dr. Thorp said, and don't have training in management, they look at it like I'm getting the same, when they go into their uppers, they're saying, look, I'm getting the same work done, but I'm saving you $70,000 or whatever that salary was in productivity. So it becomes an issue where you don't learn to incentivize the employee that really is the linchpin of your corporation. And what winds up happening, and this is definitely happening in government, where he said it's like you'll have people coming in as the mailroom clerk. They'll keep their head down. They work. They get 2 or 3 promotions, but they don't get the training that come. And then people act like they believe bosses act, not because they were trained.
Yeah, right. It's that the positional power. They just think they can do it because they have this position and they don't have the ability. You're 100% right. Marcus, excellent call. I got to hit a break here, but Godspeed to you and your wife. Shout out to everybody listening on WMAL. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I see we got calls from all over the country, Idaho, Ohio, more blinking right now. Don't lose your place in line. I'm going to continue the calls straight ahead with each and every one of you. And I'm looking forward to it. Open phones across America is going on right now. Plus, we're going to talk about all sorts of things with relationships with Jill Robin Payne. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdes.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media. Welcome back for another hour, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. It's Friday night. Blessed to be here with you. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. We're going to do some calls in a little bit on this late night national town hall conversation, but I want to get into a conversation with you guys with respect to compassion, right? Because we're seeing such a lack of compassion in society, right? Globally, right? There are these people, the Druze people, right? They're Arabs, a religious group from West Asia, and they are, you know, they're not Muslim, and they're being slaughtered along with Christians in Syria. This is in addition to the Christians that are being slaughtered in Nigeria, in Congo. Let me see where else we've seen recent killings. I mean, they're really happening in many, many places. They're burning things down, and shoot, they're trying to do it in America. But I wanted to play a clip for you because, you know, every now and again you get one of these clips on social media. This makes so much sense. Listen to this.
Is occurring in Syria, one of the worst massacres in recent history. In the Druze majority city, armed militia, many tied to Islamist extremists, stormed the city and ended up killing over 1,000 people and displacing nearly 200,000 men, women, and children. And they're not only killing Druze, they're also killing Christians. Churches have been burned, people have been beheaded. We even had Syrian American Hassam Saraya from Oklahoma who got executed along with 7 of his relatives. Footage of their execution was actually filmed, but barely anyone talked about it. And this isn't an isolated attack. Many Syrian Druze and Syrian Christians have been ambushed and being executed this entire year, yet no one is talking about it. Extremist groups like Saraya al-Sar al-Sunna have actually publicly claimed that they are the one that are doing the killings, and they're not afraid to admit it, and they're not afraid to share what their intention is whatsoever. But there's no hashtags, no outrage, no riots, no claiming, oh my gosh, down with these Syrian Islamists, no radicalization on the other side. Because why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative that the Muslims that are killing these Syrian Druze and Syrian Christians are the oppressors. No, they still fit under the narrative of oppressed, which is why no one is talking about this, which is why it's so easy to ignore because they are the oppressed group. So if you actually want to claim morality and war crime and defending those that are under attack, why don't you speak up for the Syrian Druze and Syrian Christians who are being massacred, beheaded, and executed? Why don't we hear your voices on that either?
So that's part of what's happening, and this is an ongoing thing, right? It's open season on Christianity, and I got to tell you, I think it's when you see things like this, they feel distant, they feel far away, but they're going to get closer. I had a conversation earlier today with somebody who was telling me about a conversation he had with someone from the United Kingdom. And they were saying how they'd never seen more than 3 million people mobilized in the streets of the UK. And we just saw that a couple of weeks ago, right? Tommy Robinson led that. And the part of this that I feel is historic is that we likely haven't seen this type of thing in our lifetime, right? We've seen people that are just minding their own business, not looking to be involved in politics, not looking to be involved in anything. But they're being pushed into this because their way of life as they know it is rapidly changing, and it's not for the better. I saw a report the other day of a woman in, I think it was right outside of Paris, in France. She owns a bakery, and she's there with one of her employees, and they're, having the interview with the reporter. And she's saying, I've been here for a while, but look, it's hard for me to make money. I'm likely going to have to shut down. And she said, look, and she points to her storefront, and she says, look outside. And there was no lie, about 25 or 30 men just standing in the middle of the street with their hands in their pockets. And she said they're there all day. They bother the women that come by. She said at some points, there was a tunnel that was off to the side. She said at some points, they pushed the women into those tunnels to molest them, and even worse, sometimes rape. And she said, and you can hear these women crying for help. And she said, I want to run in there and help them, but I realize, who am I going to help? I'm just going to help myself to get raped. And I was just beside myself in hearing that this is what's going on, and nobody's doing anything about it. In fact, the police are helping the bad guys, right? When you have like the church taking action, there was a preacher that was, preaching the word of God, saying, hey, look, we have to repent. We can't do this type of thing. Let's live better. They said that he was causing a public disturbance and he wasn't allowed to preach there because, again, in England, you don't have the same protections that we have in the United States. So this guy was told, look, we're going to give you a warning right now, but if we have to come back here, we can give you a ticket and you can be arrested for this. And this is, again, as a follow-up to people, sometimes young people, sometimes old people, making comments online that they deem as inappropriate or hurtful or whatever their phraseology is. And they will confiscate your iPad, your laptop, your house computer, and put you in jail. The police, like in uniform, will show up and do that. This is the stuff J.D. Vance, our vice president, was talking about when he spoke with some of his government colleagues at the conference over in Europe. And they were saying, oh, J.D. Vance saying all these things. He had to say them. He had to say that speech is under attack and Europe is taking a backseat to real fascism, to real authoritarianism. And we're seeing this shift happen right now. And it's happening right before our very eyes. And to me, I think this is all a lack of compassion. It really is. It's bizarre to me that this is happening when you see the things that are happening in Syria, in Congo, in Nigeria. But we need, I think, to really put this into perspective, and we're going to do that. I also want to talk about how people, even in regular relationships, they turn to ChatGPT for advice. And this is drastic, right? People are losing relationships. People are breaking up because they're going to ChatGPT instead of calling their therapist, calling their pastor, calling their best friend, right? They're not even using humans anymore. They're just turning to artificial intelligence. And I've got to tell you, this sounds like a recipe for disaster. So I want to talk to Jill Robin Payne. She's the author of the Bempathy book series. That's empathy with a B in front. And I want to get her take on all of these things because ChatGPT, I think, is going to do us in. We've got to do better with our relationships, and we're going to learn how to do it with Jill Robin Payne straight ahead. Keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdes, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
What's up, America? Welcome back. Rich Valdes keeping you company tonight. And I got this article sent to me by one of my producers. ChatGPT, ending marriages as spouses use AI to attack partners. And I thought, man, this is a topic that I've got to talk about with Jill Robin Payne. You know Jill Robin Payne. She's a licensed psychotherapist out in Texas, and she every now and again I pull her into the studio. I get on my chair right here. She head shrinks me, and we get into our session. Jill Robin Payne, welcome.
I want to thank you for having me come to your station and be here in New York City. I'm loving it.
Amen. Well, I love that. It's good to see you, Jill Robin Payne. You look fantastic in fuchsia, by the way.
Thank you so much.
And This is interesting, right? So these AI chatbots like ChatGPT, people say they're becoming inextricably tangled with people's private lives, their public lives, causing unpredictable new crises. And this is interesting, right? They're saying you can reach a collision point in a romantic relationship. One person becomes fixated on ChatGPT or another bot, and for therapy, like asking them for advice rather than getting bad advice from a scorned girlfriend, right? Yeah. This is going to some very biased machine that doesn't know you. Right. And this seems like it spells out a recipe for disaster.
Yes, and believe it or not, Rich, a lot of people knew this was happening many years ago because, and some people are talking about this, it's called the Eliza effect. And back in 1966, way before you were born, the MIT did an experiment. One of the professors wanted to find out if a chatbot could do therapy. And he programmed it to be Rogerian, which was basically where you just respond by repeating what the person says and not really saying much. And so it worked so well that his secretary told him to leave the room because she wanted to be private with Eliza. That was the chatbot. So what they say now is that is the Eliza effect. What is happening with people is we will project human qualities onto things such as a chatbot and think it's intelligent because it talks. It must be intelligent. And we must trust it because it's intelligent. And then we think that it's empathetic when it's not. And so it's an illusion.
You know, Jill Robin Payne, I love talking about this stuff because, I would say, you know, I can look at, and this is not me trying to toot my own horn. This is really just, I look at things as black and white when I look at, I don't know, what's going on in Russia with Ukraine, even Israel and Hamas, a little more gray, but still, good is good, bad is bad. I kind of get it. We don't want people dead. But when you get into relationships, it is super difficult to understand things because there's this thing that I get rid of when I'm analyzing political things or even business things. It's a thing called emotion. I use logic to process all of those things.
Right.
But it's almost impossible to use logic if you're in a relationship with a woman because I think they think more. No, I don't mean that pejoratively, right? I mean, they tend to be very emotional thinkers. There's an emotional response where you're thinking more like utilitarian. And I think that oftentimes causes conflict. So this is, I think, the underlying cause of what leads people to go to ChatGPT to begin with.
Right. And you'd be surprised because men are also doing it. So men are doing this. In Japan, they have a high celibacy rate. If you look up hologram wives, celibate lives, you'll find the Japanese are having some problems there. So it's really a worldly thing. And we as humans need to just realize this. And I think we need to increase awareness that AI is a wonderful device. It's a tool. And it is a tool. It does not have emotions. It doesn't have gut feelings. And it is there to help us, not tell us what to do.
So when someone comes to you and says, hey, Jill Robin Payne, you weren't available or I was busy and my husband, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my partner, whomever, you know, they really pissed me off. And I went to ChatGPT and they said to do this.
Right.
How do you counsel someone like that?
So how do I counsel someone like that?
Do you hit them on the head and say, what's wrong with you? Call me, call a friend, call somebody.
I'm laughing because if you would come see me, I'm very direct. You'd think I was from New York. And my clients know I just tell it like it is. And I would basically have told them just what I told you, and that you're going to need to sit back. And if you really want to have someone help you, you need someone that has an ethics board. And as far as I know, AI doesn't have an ethics board. And matter of fact, there are even some life coaches that have caused damage, even on a friend of mine's marriage. Her husband was going to see a life coach that didn't have an ethics board and was basically saying, you need to leave your wife. And because she's my friend, they are still married.
Wow.
So I helped guide them to somebody that had, you know, that was licensed. And so if people...
You know, I think that it's just an interesting thing. I think this is a fundamental difference in approach, right? Whether it's ethics or not, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you could expound. But I'm just using my personal experience. I remember being married and going through some challenging times, and my wife said, I want a divorce. And I said, no, I think, we should probably talk about this. And I recommended we go to therapy. She said, I don't want to do anything with you. So she went to therapy. She came back. I said, how'd it go? And she said, she told me to leave you. And she did. And that was that. It was over. But I laugh now. I laughed then too, honestly. In between, I wasn't laughing during the child support years and all that. But it's been many years. But my thought was, I remember I picked the counselor. I went to focusonthefamily.org, James Dobson's website, and these people were all recommended as good Christian counselors. And I don't know if she was angry at me at the time and was being kind of sarcastic or facetious, but I think she genuinely, whatever she told this person, that person told her, you probably don't need to be married. And it's dawned on me, I think most people go to therapy with the hope that there's a solution, that the solution is staying together. I think most, and that could be my own naivete or my own bias, but I think there are people that think the answer to your problems is to leave and to move on. And I think that's a fundamental issue with the counselor or the life coach or whomever, and perhaps with the client.
Right. And speaking just of that, I'm pro relationship. So if you're,
as am I.
Yeah. And I will let my clients know when they come see me. I let them know, no one is to blame. It's the dynamics of the situation, and that I am pro relationship. So they'll either come back or they won't. So it depends on.
But at least you put your cards on the table.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important. Same thing I do. If you're listening to this show, most people will figure out quickly that I give commentary from the conservative perspective. I don't try to make any bones about that. I happen to like President Trump. I don't hide that either, so that people are fully aware of what we're talking about. I don't want them to think I'm trying to give you some straight down the middle commentary. It's not what I do. But there are people that do that, and I think they do it in therapy too. You walk into a therapist session and you're like, this is a fair person, and they've already got you half figured out, and it may not be what you were thinking.
Exactly. And so when I do couple therapy, see, getting back to chat, that is, they're going to give you what you want to hear. That's how come that young kid killed himself and used ChatGPT. ChatGPT agreed with him, said, this is how you do it, and it was successful. And so we need to understand that
that's crazy.
It is crazy. And that it is, isn't it? There's something called anthropomorphic. And this is what that ELIZA effect is. We need to understand this, that we look at the moon and we go, oh, there's the man in the moon. It's so we can relate with it. It's just something that we do. It's a survival thing. We want to fit in. That's how come we have what is called FOMO, fear of missing out. We've got to look and do that doom scroll because we've got to know what's going on, right? So we just need to know this, step back, and do what you do.
Well, I want to pick up right there. Yeah. Why people feel the need to doom scroll, why they have that fear of missing out. Right. Why is that so innate for some people? Straight ahead. Folks, we're coming right back with Jill Robin Payne. She's the author of the Bempathy book series. That's empathy with a B in front of it. You got to check them out. I've got all of them, and I recommend that you get all of them too. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdes.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdes.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdes, keeping you company all night long. 833-4-VALDES is the number. I want to hear from you on your crazy relationship stories, as well as have you had ChatGPT be your therapist? I've got Jill Robin Payne, but you guys don't have her unless you're calling in and you're listening to the program. Jill Robin Payne, we left off with, what's pushing people to go in so many different directions, right. and I want to talk about that underlying stuff, I guess, we were talking about before, because I think that's really important. dig in. Well, on the relationship aspect, before the break, we mentioned how people are kind of misled by ChatGPT and ultimately feeling slighted by FOMO, by missing the doom scroll before bed, by missing a certain event. And I'm no different.
Sure.
Right? I'll give you an example. I had an opportunity to go to the Bad Bunny concert in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
Well, I didn't go. Oh. And I missed. I've had like 3 FOMO things this year. That was one of the most recent one. I wanted to go with my daughter, and she wanted to go, and it was kind of interesting because an artist from Puerto Rico had not done that before, where they said, you know what, if you want to see the show, come to Puerto Rico. It did wonders for the economy on the island. Wow. $700+ million in 2 weeks or something like that.
It, so
right. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I wanted to go. I had a ticket that was lined up. I didn't pull the trigger fast enough just because I needed to find a guest host. I had to take a day off. And it just seemed like a lot of work. And life got busy. And it fell by the wayside. And I couldn't do it. And now that's it. It likely won't happen again. And again, it's significant for many people, and even for me. I don't think it's a huge deal, but it's something I just can't do again. Right? That happened, and it's over. And it was epic, and it was over. Right. I also got invited by the president of Israel to go to Israel for a week, and I had to not be able to go to that. I agreed, and then they changed the date because of the war with Iran. Right. And in that time frame, something came up that it didn't work out, and I wasn't able to go on that trip. Right. So, there's a couple of things that I think it's okay to miss certain things in life when you think you can do them again. But when they're like one-shot deals, you kind of have FOMO. I know I do. I sit there and I go, man, I wanted to go to the Holy Land, and man, I wanted to go to the Bad Bunny concert in Puerto Rico because he's taking it on tour, and he's going to do it in the Dominican Republic and in Spain and in Medellin, Colombia. But I didn't want to go to those places. Sure. I wanted to go to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. So the reason people do that, just like I said, it's survival mode. Yeah. We like to survive. We want to fit in. And if we've missed out on something, it could be really important. It could be life-threatening, even though it's not. And so when they're doom scrolling, everything is so short, Rich, that it's just little segments, and they think they need more and more and more. And so people are just getting that dopamine rush, and there's no ending. And I know this is X-rated for me to say that. I tell people to think of sex. It's unfinished business. They have not completed the act, and it keeps them going, and they keep on getting that dopamine. And so people don't talk about this. I have a girlfriend who was talking to a friend of hers about her friend's son. And the lady told her that the son was using the phone so much, and she said to the son, "I'm taking the phone away." And the son says to her, "Well, Mom, if you take that phone away, I'm going to kill myself." The mom goes, "Yeah, right. Go to your room." So he goes to the closet and he hangs himself with his belt. Oh my God! So when people tell me that these things are not addictive, they are. They're addicting. Everything that we do with the internet, we've got to watch it. People that are doing porn, it's addictive anyway. And when it's on the internet, it makes it so it's easy access. This is where I tell you, we just need to educate. Because when clients come to me and they're couples, I tell them that whatever you bring outside the marriage comes in your bed. So if you're telling your girlfriends all these things, if you're telling your mom all these things, or the husband's going out and out with the guys partying, you're bringing that in the bed, and it's tearing people apart. So AI, you're bringing it in the bed. Literally, they bring it in the bed. They'll have the computer, right? They're on their phone in the bed.
What role does feeling, I guess, maybe less than or insecure play with some of this addictive behavior? Right. I know that there's people that have turned to drugs and alcohol because they just to cope, but some of these other behaviors, doom scrolling, on their phone, whatever it is, this stuff, does it come from them feeling like I'm not enough if I don't do this?
Right. So that's a great question, because I'm going to say that there are people that are born a certain way, and it's nature and nurture. Some people are feeling where they're lonely or insecure. They may be more apt to do that. Also, what's happening, and I've been telling people, we're creating a society that's creating mental disorders, mental issues, because our frontal lobe is not fully developed. They think 25, 30, and look at all the people that are using we're talking screen time here. We're not talking social media. It's screen time. Your eyes, the back of your eyes, it's called the retina, which is brain material. So this is affecting our brains, and it's changing our frontal lobe, which is our executive function, where we problem solve, critical think, impulsiveness.
Right, we're creating ADHD from doom scrolling.
We are.
Wow.
And so there's also been an association, they don't say we're creating, OCD, with looking at a lot of videos or doing gaming. So there's an association. There's also something called virtual autism, right? How
does that work?
Well, what they're saying is that it's only in the young kids, 2 to 3, and we're creating autistic behavior. So it's not that you're autistic, it's that you're like that Gen Z stare.
Right.
That's an autistic behavior. So I'm saying that's what's going on. We just need to be aware of it. I tell my clients that get out there in the world, get out there and on the grass, take your shoes off, put your feet in the grass, automatically you'll get grounded. I was talking to some people the other day, young people in their 20s, and I said, do you ever just sit by yourself and just sit in silence? They said, no. Do you know it's a necessity? 15 minutes a day, it's important for you to sit in silence. It lowers your blood pressure. It gets your mind to relax. It gets you to restart. It gets you to think better. You're smarter if you do that.
Yeah.
And people aren't doing that. So it's causing, just even that is causing a lot of
We get hooked. We get hooked on the rat race.
Yes.
On just running around and,
Well, you're in New York.
Trying to steal a parking spot. Yeah.
Right? You got to be one ahead of the other person.
Right. Or they'll get you.
Exactly. Okay. So that's exactly, you got it. That's
fascinating.
Yeah.
So to circle back, because I think what you said made a lot of sense. For people who do feel like, especially young people who are scrolling and doing whatever, this person you described, this boy that was, hung himself terribly. Someone like that, they don't value themselves or their life enough to continue living without this. How do we help people like that? What do we look for? How do we come alongside somebody and say, hey, man, you're all right without the phone, without the iPad?
So, you know what? I tell people, I even did a video on it. Every day when you go out, if you smile at someone and say hi, you may be literally saving their life, because that gets people to feel significant. A smile is contagious. Saying hello. We need to do that more. Even sitting chit-chatting. I told you all the people that I have met in New York. I've had such a great time.
Yeah.
I've just been chit-chatting. I may never see them again. That's okay. That 1 minute made me feel good, and it's going to make that other people feel good, or that person feel good. So that's one. Then families. I say family units, please have family meetings. Every week, have a family meeting. If you even have a 2-year-old, have the 2-year-old lead the family meeting. These are just some things to do.
I want to talk about that. We're going to pause right here. We're going to come right back with Jill Robin Payne. She's on tour in New York. This is her New York stop. She's here with me, Rich Valdes America at Night. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. Rich Valdes. I want to hear from you, 833-4-VALDES. And check this out. We're with Jill Robin Payne. We're wrapping up. We're talking about having a family meeting. Yes. And I want to get your thoughts on family meeting, and I also want to get your thoughts on why society's becoming a little bit more abrasive, at least from my view. It seems like we've become a little more secular, a little less spiritual, and a lot more apt to violence and not caring about people. Right. But I want you to finish your thought on family meetings before we get into that piece.
Okay. So family meetings are wonderful because it gives the child and you a time to connect.
And I guess you could do this if you had no kids, right? Let's say
my
kids are big, but if I get married again or even have a girlfriend or something, I'm going to, hey, let's have a meeting.
Okay, that's even better. I say not only have a meeting, have date night. Every week have a date night. Sometimes the same day, same time. And it doesn't have to cost anything. You can just have maybe a cup of wine, watch the sunset.
Love some wine.
And talk about the week and make it positive. And that's including the meeting. You want to make it positive because that hits the reward center, which is the same thing as going online. So that makes people listen more. And then afterwards, you say what you want. Don't focus on, he nags. Focus on what you want. I'd love you to speak to me in a soft tone.
Jill Robin Payne, I want to share something with you. I learned this from another, my other favorite shrink, Dr. Vince. And he was telling me that, because we were talking about the effects of cortisol on the brain and how you freak out when the cortisol spikes. And I said, and he said it takes about 3.5 hours for that to go down. He said the only other thing that studies show will lower that is a genuinely heartfelt compliment. That when you say something nice to someone, real words of affirmation or praise, that can actually bring down that cortisol almost immediately. Yeah. And I thought, that's amazing. It's kind of like what you said before about smiling and saying hello to people. Yeah. I think we write off how easy or how simple, but yet how big of an impact that might have.
Right. And I was talking to some businessmen, and I was telling them, when you're giving a presentation, don't just start off with a presentation. Do like what you and I did. We did chit-chat. Yeah. Because when you chit-chat, that synchronizes our brain, and so we're already connected, and we didn't even do a compliment. So that's what's missing. So more chit-chat, just small talk, no pressure, and then a compliment. And from the heart, you've got to find something nice about someone.
You know, that's I think so much easier said because you're a pretty affable person. But I think a lot of people have trouble with chit-chat. And I happen to be one of them, believe it or not. I don't talk to people that are next to me on the airplane. I don't talk to people on the elevator. I'll say good morning, and that's it. I really don't go beyond that. I find it almost awkward. I'm just like, I'm in an elevator, bro. What are we going to do? How much talking are we going to do? But again, that's, I guess, the New Yorker in me. I don't know. You don't trust everybody. But I think some people have a genuine, like, they're walking. I worked with a guy who was a PhD.
Yes.
1988 Jeopardy champion. This guy is a very smart guy, great guy. But he would walk by me in the hallway and not say hello. And I thought he didn't like me. And then I later learned he's just a serious introvert.
Sure, yeah. So again, smiling is contagious. I'll talk to somebody.
And free.
And it's free. It's free. And everyone can do it. And I tell people, practice. I have something in my books, The Meeting People. It's not a game book.
Yes, great book.
Yeah, thank you. To go in front of the mirror and look at yourself and say, what are you advertising? Are you saying welcome? What do you want to advertise? And also smile at yourself every morning. I had somebody, seriously, he's deceased now, and he was a therapist. Every morning he would look in the mirror, smile at himself and say, Sam, you're great. And I'd laugh. Yeah. So people do that to themselves.
I'm guilty of that.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm going to start doing that.
I do it. I sing it. I go, man, I'm good looking. Yeah. Oh, this guy, best radio guy ever. Yeah, I do. I do a lot of that.
I'm loving it.
I got it, believe it or not, from my friend. Shout out Sid Rosenberg. He's on the air in New York City.
Yeah.
And he used to come out my desk early in my career, and he would say, Rich Valdes, you're awesome. You are awesome. And you're famous. He just had all these funny things. And I used to go home and repeat them.
Right.
It was funny for me.
Isn't it? And look, just see how you feel right now, just even talking about it. So I have something that I developed because of my husband. It's positive name calling. And I've started with him. I call him Bubbly. So you see, he's not bubbly, right? He's really charming.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he loves it. And he's Byron Bubbly. And
love that.
Yeah. And we've been bubbly all the time since we've been here. Because
you guys are the quintessential cute couple.
Oh, thank you.
You really are.
Thank you very much.
Jill Robin Payne, in the interest of time, I want to get some of your thoughts on a little bit of a more serious topic, which is America's getting sour, in my opinion, and not right now. We've been getting sour. We've been growing to kind of accommodate ill will towards our fellow man. And I'm guilty of it, I think, as many people are, right? I think I started in this game saying, I'm going to criticize your politics, but I'm not going to criticize you. And I get this from hate the sin, love the sinner. But I think sometimes we fall off from that. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I think, is eye-opening for me in many ways. I watched more Charlie Kirk videos than I had ever. My interactions with him in real life, he was always a gentleman. He's a very charming guy, very nice guy, very sweet guy.
Yes.
Yet there were these videos demonizing him, making him bad. And it made me realize, and not to minimize him, but they'll do that to any one of us. It is a true issue of, I'm going to say, hate that is expanding in society. What do we do?
Do what I'm doing, and we need to model behavior and say things. And when I talk, if no one listens, people, you have a bigger audience than me. I just have clients coming in my audience. I mean, my office. Say things and let them know that the United States is not. Murder is a sin.
Yeah.
And even if you want to get religious, the 10 Commandments says thou shalt not murder. So we need to talk about that.
Talk the talk.
And so
walk the walk.
And so when people were siding and thinking it was, oh, yay, and I'm, what? Because that's promoting, I said, what about bullying? What about spousal abuse? We don't believe in that. So it doesn't matter who you are, you're a human being, and we need to, I'm very passionate about this because I did a little video, and after my little video that I did, I made the mistake, Rich, at the end, it was a minute, 30 seconds, I said, I just want us all to get along. Do you know that someone said in big capitals, aren't you sweet? And I'll never get over that, I won't. And people need to understand getting along doesn't mean you need to love that person or like that person. There's plenty of bosses I've had that I have thought were,
we keep the peace.
Exactly. And we need to learn how to work with people, not against people.
If you want to learn how to work with people, not against people, you got to get one of Jill Robin Payne's books in the Bempathy series. Jill Robin Payne, very quickly, let them know the website where they go to get the book.
Okay, it's jillrobinpayne.com. If you go to Bempathy, just put the B in front of empathy, and I'm all over. You will find it.
Outstanding. Jill Robin Payne, you are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for head shrinking me today. I always appreciate seeing you. Welcome to New York.
Thank you.
Amigos, we're coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. 833-4-VALDES. Let's go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and quickly check in with our friend Dorian, KDKA. Go right ahead. Quickly.
Rich, I was listening to your first segment, and it explained what happened to me in 1975. I joined a corporation in 70 and had success through about 3 years, doubled my salary. But then, same thing. I burned out, and at the end, I was just going in, not doing anything in my office, and just waiting for a paycheck.
Just waiting for time, right? Get that paycheck and keep it moving. You're right. And these are things that I think people don't realize are so important, but they really, really matter. Dorian, thanks for chiming in. I appreciate it. Shout out to KDKA. JW, Dothan, Alabama, WDBT, Speed Round. Go right ahead quickly.
Too time, my Latino freedom-loving brother from your Caucasian freedom-loving brother from the South. Listen,
my man.
The legal immigration deal the Democrats want, the trillions of dollars, that's crazy. Look here, this is going on all over the world.
Well, listen, I think you're right. They are totally trying to give illegal immigrants health care through Medicaid, through this plan, and it's not going to work. Amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdes.